Fantasy Football Factory Week 1.
It's here. It's here.
King of the South, Mintzy. I'm Stephen Cheah. We got Moody on the sticks. So we're going to take a little bit of a different turn this year. Obviously, DraftKings presenting sponsor, the best sports book Barstool Sports could possibly be working with. We also got to thank them. I'll thank them right off the top. Obviously, we're presented by DraftKings. You think a QB will throw for more than 300 yards? You think a Philly running back will have less than 100? Or how about that receiver in Miami grabbing a touchdown? Put your money where your mouth is and check out the DraftKings Pick 6 app, the newest way to compete against others in fantasy football and win cash on DraftKings. Super simple to get started. Just download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app. Pick a player, choose to have more or less than a certain stat like yards, touchdowns, catches, etc. Get the picks right and you'll win cash. This is for first-time Pick 6 players. Check this out. New customers play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Guaranteed, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. As a guy who watches the All-22, I use NFL Plus Premium. They also have a lot of new cool interfaces that you can sort by stuff now, which is going to be great for fantasy and daily fantasy. So go to the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Download it. Use code FACTORY. That's FACTORY, FACTORY. New customers play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Offer expires September 19th, only on the DraftKings Pick 6 app. The crown is yours. Obviously, we're going to do a lot of stuff with DraftKings this year. In the past, we've done kind of fantasy either wrap-ups and previews or a mix of both. This year, we're going to kind of focus on DFS. It's obviously where DraftKings has made their hay. And DFS is a foray that's not unfamiliar to us. But we're going to get people watching acclimated to it and kind of play ourselves. I know Pardon My Take is doing a big contest. We're going to be in those contests weekly. We're going to talk about our results. We're going to talk about where we see the board falling, who's overvalued, who's undervalued, and just kind of get it going, have a little fun here.
Yeah, and the thing with DraftKings that makes it so cool, it's a one-stop shop for it all. You can play DFS, you can bet props, you can bet games. It's all under one balance, so it's just so convenient. It's your one-stop shop for everything, and I'm excited to compete against everyone. You know, we want to compete with the Stoolies in these contests, and I'm excited about the Pardon My Take one. And, you know, this is a different avenue, but it's so much fun. We're going to be coming out every Thursday morning. We're going to be making our teams. We're going to be going over prices, values we like, values we don't like, specifically for the Sunday games. You know, this is going to apply more to the non-primetime games. But I'm thrilled about it and really appreciate having Moody back in Louisiana and getting to do this with you. And it's football season. We've been waiting on this all year, and thanks to DraftKings, let's freaking go, baby. I'm pumped.
This will be fun because, yeah, this is so – for people not familiar, we're going to focus on just the classic contest. So it's a $50,000 budget to pick 9 players. And this is going to be during the Sunday slate, non-prime time. So this is the classic version. And this will be fun because we're going to be in the gambling cave watching these games together. And we'll get to see it all unfold live, in addition to our prop bets and other bets we got going. But this is going to be a fun thing that we do. The thing with DraftKings, the way they do the DFS is slightly different. The fact that they have bonuses. So for 300-plus passing yards, you get a 3-point bonus. For 100-plus rushing yards and for 100-plus receiving yards, you get a 3-point bonus. Passing touchdowns are 4 points, and it is full points per reception. Interceptions, just -1. So little ways you can finagle it. You're looking not necessarily just TD dependent, but you know the yardage things are huge. Yardage bonuses are massive. So if you can hit those, that's great. We also play a defense special teams. There are a bunch of rules with that as far as points allowed. You know, if you pitch a shutout, that's 10 points for defense, which is huge. 1 to 6 points is allowed as 7 points. Some cool intricacies there. But looking at the matchups for week 1, like obviously we have a Thursday night game, which is not going to count, a Friday night game, which is not going to count. The highest scoring game or projected highest total of the weekend, 51.5, is a Sunday night game. That will not count. So we're just talking about the classic 1s and 4s, or for those in Central Time, the noons and 3s for those games. So we got a 12-game slate. Mintzy, right off the bat, were there any guys that kind of jumped off the page to you value-wise at any of the positions? So we got we're playing 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, a flex, which cannot be a quarterback, so running back, receiver, tight end, and a defense special team. So is there anybody that jumped off the page for you?
Yes.
For any position?
Yes. Close your ears, Stephen Cheah. Jaden Daniels at 5,700.
And 4-point passing touchdown?
But he can run too. That's the
He
thing.
can.
He can run too. And the reason I like him, it's only 5,700. Look, obviously you know more about the Bucs than anybody, but I'm very familiar with them in the NFC South. The Bucs always have a really good run defense, always.
They do.
But if you're gonna attack them, it's through the air, and that's how they've been for years. And Daniels' first game, I think 5,700 is a low value. I think he can chunk it, but I also think he's going to run a little bit. There's a chance he gets a rushing touchdown. And at 5,700, I think he's a phenomenal value. And I talked about how much I liked him going into the year.
Yep.
I got to put my money where my mouth is, and week one I'm doing it. So that I thought he was the best quarterback value, just specifically at the 5,700 price. Because with DFS, as you mentioned, you've got a $50,000 budget.
Yep.
You can't just buy Josh Allen and McCaffrey and all the premier guys. You got to find some value hunting and then pick a couple star players. And I'm rolling with Daniels at 5,700. I think it's a good value, and I think that over/under is 44. I think that game could get a little wild.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, so these prices are from DraftKings, but to think about it like this, the defense is going to be a little bit cheaper. The defense will be, typically between $2,300 and $3,200. So you're playing with about $5,700, $5,800 per player. You're going to look for savings when you can, but that would be kind of an average price point for a player, but this is a quarterback, and you only get one, so these tend to be a little bit more expensive. We're seeing, Josh Allen right now at $8,000, C.J. Stroud $7,500, Dak, who I love, $7,100, but maybe a little bit less in the 4-point passing touchdown format. But yeah, so this is certainly kind of an average cost at the position. I can see it. I think the Bucs do pretty well with bowls against rookie quarterbacks. I'm interested. He's not going to – think about Jaden Daniels. He has played a lot of football. So I'm not necessarily worried, or I don't necessarily think that he's going to see things that he's never seen before, but I think he is. I think they are going to disguise a lot of stuff. I think they're going to do a lot of interesting blitzes against him, and I am interested to see how he handles it. It is kind of an unknown because, he could – handle it really well. He could have. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a really deep touchdown. He throws a great deep ball. Terry McLaurin's a very good player. The Bucs secondary is better than average, but I do not think it is great. We have Antoine Winfield, Jordan Whitehead is back. He's more of an in the box safety. Jamel Dean is a very good number one corner. After that, I think there's a lot of questions. Is Zion McCollum going to emerge as a really a viable, solid starter? He showed flashes of that last year, but certainly was inconsistent. We have questions at nickel and beyond that. So the Bucs kept 11 defensive backs on the roster, which is a ton. So I think they're going to be doing some tinkering there. I think there is certainly room for Jaden Daniels to have a big game. At $5,700, that's a pretty good price point.
One thing I want to mention too on strategy for DFS. This is about shooting for the moon when you're in these competitions.
Yes.
So there's a lot of when you gamble on someone, you go boom or bust.
Yep.
Because you're trying to beat thousands of people.
Yep.
And so it's not like if you're in a fantasy league where you're playing somebody head to head, you're going to go for more guys that are stable and 10 to 15 points and all that. In DFS, you're shooting for the moon. You're like, oh, if somebody could just really go nuts, you could see it, then fire. Why not? You got to beat thousands of people.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm kind of doing here. I'm saying that there's a chance Daniels could have a huge breakout first game where he throws for 280, runs for 60, and gets 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, that's a great point. You want to be great. Being average is basically being bad. You don't get points for fourth place. You're playing for the big money. So you want to go a little bit counter, not always too counter, but you want to get the guy that pops. Somebody always pops on Sundays, and you want to make sure that guy is in your lineup.
Allen at 8,000. Just touching on the top of the quarterback thing, I get why Allen's the most expensive. Arizona's defense sucks. Allen runs too. There's a great chance he gets a rushing touchdown this game. The rushing value's there. The only thing with Allen, Shakir's the only receiver back that's caught passes from him on this roster.
Yep.
We'll get to tight end in a little bit, but I think it favors a certain tight end on their team too, who might be on my team.
Yep. Yeah, so the over-under in that game is 48.5, which is tied for the highest of the day that is playable. He is, I don't want to say unanimously, but he's been QB 1 or 2, I think, the last 4 years in fantasy. So Josh Allen certainly is a place you could spend your money. It's going to be top of the market, though.
Yeah, the 8,000 though. I mean, if you spend it on Allen, that's 2,300 above your average for the spots. Like you said, you got an average of 5,700, and so you're going to have to be sacrificing a lot of other positions. So that's why I'm going Daniels.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to address, so DFS, some people do, have a lot of calculations and do, a bunch of entries and, massive formulas. We're going to go with a more artful approach, not necessarily, guy in your toilet picking a team, but just some thought behind it and kind of handcrafted, if you will.
Yeah, and we're also not putting 5 or 10 entries into these things. We're picking one.
Yep.
When we're gonna just see what happens with it. Me and Moody and Cheah will all be doing that, and we want you to do it with us. Come kick our ass. Come talk shit to us. We're all for it. It's we're all in this together.
Yeah. Speaking of going counter, there were a few guys that kind of stood out to me as values at quarterback.
Okay.
That I want to bring up to you. One of them's Geno Smith. $5,500. He is playing a very good secondary in Denver, but this is a game that I could see getting a little out of hand. I just saw Bo Nix was named a captain, which is interesting, but I'm not sold on the Denver is going to be very good train. I think Geno could have a good game at a discount at $5,500. Another guy, Daniel Jones, $5,400, and let's talk about Daniel Jones for a minute. He's coming off ACL surgery. But prior to last season, he played in 6 games. Obviously not a good season, and certainly tanked his stock. He is, I don't want to say a laughing stock, but he is in the 20s of fantasy quarterbacks. But he does offer rushing value, and the Minnesota Vikings do not have a good defense. So I think this could be a game. I think a lot of people are going to be on Sam Darnold, who's at $5,200, which is also a value and at a discount. He is going back to MetLife Stadium where he started his career, so he's going to have certainly some bad feelings, and he's got a great receiving core. But Daniel Jones is a guy, $5,400, that I think, I'm not saying he's going to go crazy, but he is a guy who does offer that rushing value. The question is, coming off an ACL, is he going to run a lot? Absolutely can't say for sure, but I'm just saying that he is a guy at a discount that could go off if he does run. That is certainly.
Look, I see everything on your logic because people forget 2 years ago, the year they won the playoff game, Daniel Jones was really good in fantasy that year.
Yes.
Right? Because it was, but it was the rushing value that made that. Mm-hmm. It's just off the torn ACL.
Yep.
I mean, how much are they going to run him off that?
Yep.
If he had been healthy, I would see it because the Vikings do have a bad pass defense.
I do like. We'll talk about receivers shortly, but I do like Malik Neighbors. So like a stack with him and Malik Neighbors. And for those that don't know, a stack is when you pick, quarterback and one of the weapons on that team, whether it be a receiver or tight end, not necessarily a running back, because that's a little bit counter unless you're assuming they're going to get receiving touchdowns. But that is an advantage with DFS is if you get a stack correctly and, Daniel Jones throws 2 touchdowns to Malik Neighbors, that can be really big.
No, that is big. The stack thing, that's part of winning. I mean, like you talk about, it's shooting for the moon.
Yep.
You're going high upside, and so a lot of times the winning teams do have stacks. Look, I see the logic. It's just the torn ACL thing, but I see the logic in the value hunt. I'm surprised you like Mayfield's only 5,600 against a terrible pass defense.
Yep. Baker Mayfield, I think, is decent value. The thing that I've said this all offseason, and we'll talk about this in the running back session. I think the Bucs are going to be way more run focused than they have in the past, and they have in the past been percentage-wise, especially on early downs, run heavy, but not really successful. I think they're going to be successful in running the football, and I think that is going to be a focus of their team. I don't think you're going to be seeing 1,400-yard receivers on the Bucs, even though Mike Evans is supremely talented. Chris Godwin is now 2 years off an injury and should be back, and he's going to be playing in the slot. I think this is going to be a balanced offense that is run first. So he is at a discount. He's at $5,600 against a poor defense. He is a guy that I would look at as a value play. But one guy that I have been banging the drum for this offseason, Will Levis. Now, his matchup this week is against a good Bears defense, so that should be
no D Hopkins either.
No D Hopkins. $5,300. They signed Calvin Ridley. They got Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati, who's going to stay in the same offense. Brian Callahan is the head coach. They are bringing the Cincinnati offense to Tennessee. Last year, Will Levis averaged the highest yards per attempt. I think it was like 10.2 or 10.3. He was bombing the ball down the field. It's either hand the ball off or bomb the ball down the field, which is a fun way to play Madden. But in the NFL, that is a tough way to sustain offensive drives. we're going to more of a Joe Burrow offense where it is taking selective shots and more of a, not necessarily a full West Coast offense, but a lot of slants, a lot of in-breaking routes. And I think this is going to favor Levis a lot. The problem is I think the Bears defense is going to be very good, but I do want to point out that he is $5,300, which is below cost, which if you're looking to save, I do not hate that as an option. I also think it's going to be a seldomly picked option.
No, and look, a lot of times you can look at the percentage owned. You want to go where people aren't going.
Yes.
That's a big part of it is if you see an angle on somebody that's low percent and you hit it, that's how you win contests.
Yep.
So I see your logic. I just – If DeAndre Hopkins was playing, I think I'd be in on it.
Sure.
Because Levis had a really good connection with him last year. In the vein of pushing the ball down the field, Calvin Ridley's a dude that can catch it down the field. He's
Certainly.
a boomer bust fancy guy because he'll either do nothing or have 130 and 2 touchdowns. But those are the guys you want if you hit on them.
Yeah, if you're going to go Levis, I probably would recommend stacking with Calvin Ridley. So that is,
I feel like that's an
and he's
angle
at
nobody's going
$5,800.
to be on Levis this week. I don't think.
Yeah, it is a tough matchup. I am pretty high on the Bears defense, but we could see, things get ahead. Caleb Williams is certainly an interesting prospect, but would it surprise anyone if he had 2 turnovers and the Titans got the ball in favorable and plus field position? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. One other guy I want to mention that, so you look at the top quarterbacks. Allen's 8,000.
Yep.
Look, he should be.
Yeah.
I'm dodging C.J. Stroud at 7,500. I think it's too much. I know they're playing Indy in a dome game. The over-under's like 48.5. I see why that's favorable, but I just think it's too high. Dak, tough matchup. He's 7,100, number 3. Cleveland, that over-under's only 41.5. Yep. There's been a lot of weird stuff going on in Dallas. I think Dak's a guy you look to play in home games. The one I want to mention is the number 4 guy. I know he's expensive, but Tua with a healthy Miami at home, Jacksonville, that's 275 yards passing a game. He could go bananas in this game. I know 7K is a lot, but of the top most expensive quarterbacks, he's my favorite. The only thing is you mentioned, though, you got to get the 300-yard bonus with Tua because you're not getting anything running.
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about running backs.
Okay.
So top of the market, Jonathan Taylor, $7,800 against the Texans. Bijan Robinson at $7,700. Then we see a pretty good size fall off to Travis Etienne, who's running back number 3 at $7,200. Then we get into the 6s. Are there any running backs that you really like this week, value-wise?
It's a shoot for the moon thing, and I know it's expensive, but there's a chance. We've seen this with the Miami Dolphins where they just have these nuclear offensive explosions, and I think it's in play this week at home against Jacksonville. And with that, A-Chain, 6,800 is a lot, but they use him a lot in the passing game, and he scores a crap ton of touchdowns.
Yep.
And so he's healthy. I think A-Chain, even he's the 5th most expensive running back at 6,800, but in the vein of fantasy football being shoot for the moon, there's a chance he could go bananas. And that's why I like him, because we're trying to win and beat a lot of people.
Yep.
So that's why he's my favorite of the most expensive ones.
Yep. He's a guy where the bonus is in play almost every touch for him because we've seen him take it, 70, 80 yards on just one cut. So he is certainly a guy that is interesting. It should also be noted Raheem Mostert is at $6,400, which is above cost.
Then Miami's a hard thing to read too, because last year they both ate. I mean, they combined for like 30 touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
But it is hard to read. It seems like A-Chain is probably going to be featured more, but they're still going to both play.
Yep.
But like I said, I'm going for the moon on A-Chain because I look at some of these other top options. Look, I get Jonathan Taylor, 7,800. They're going to have a really good running game. He's going to get fed. Richardson being the quarterback, I think, helps the running game because they have to account for the quarterback run. But that's expensive. The Bijan thing, he's number 2. I think Steelers-Atlanta is an under game. I don't want to touch anybody in it. I think when you're looking –
Kyle Pitts now questionable, hamstring.
Oh, wow. Well, I didn't see that. But what I will say when I analyze Steelers-Atlanta, Steelers are always a tough underdog. I think Atlanta's going to have a good offense, but week 1 – figuring out chemistry, Cousins off the Achilles, playing a tough defense. I don't think this is a spot you spend the money on Bijan because I just think it's a lower scoring game. And one thing to factor in, I know it's basic. Steven keeps bringing up the over-unders thing. But when in doubt in fantasy and DFS, you want guys in high-scoring games.
Yep.
I don't want Pittsburgh Steelers or Carolina Panthers or New England Patriots on my DFS teams if I think they're going to score 10 points in games. And so that's kind of part of my strategy because I think Steelers-Atlanta is going to be one of the lower-scoring games. So that's one I'm avoiding. I feel like the running back thing, there's a lot of I think Kamara's overpriced at 6,700.
I was going to ask you about
That's
him.
too much, man. I know this is full point PPR.
PPR.
I get that, but I've been on the record saying all summer that I think this Carolina Saints game, the over-under is 7 points too high. And I think it's just every time these teams play, it's like 17-12. And so I don't think there's a lot of fantasy value in this game except for maybe a certain defense. But so I don't really like him that much. And then a lot of these, the problem with the running back thing, a lot of these middle guys are really expensive. I mean, I feel like you don't want to spend this, Aaron Jones, 6,500, Rashad White, who I do like, 6,300. I think he's going to be a great value all year. I just think the Commanders with Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen and Bobby Wagner, I think the run defense could be pretty good, and the pass defense is going to be god-awful. White does catch passes, though.
Catches passes.
So that part maybe give him value. But yeah, those are some of the guys I'm looking at. The one PPR guy I like, and I know I'm going back to the Commanders thing, I think Eckler is going to be featured a lot more.
Yeah, okay.
And
he's more expensive than I would have thought.
Yeah, he's 6,000, but it's full point PPR. And with Kingsbury running that offense, I think they're going to be out of shotgun, and Eckler's going to be on the field a lot more. I don't think it's going to be the power running game with Brian Robinson that people think.
Yeah. A couple guys I wanted to bring up that I thought were values. Jaylen Warren, I like him. This is a little interesting because, Arthur Smith fired in Atlanta, goes to Pittsburgh where he's the OC. He's super, super run first. Jaylen Warren is going to be a guy, $5,600 in a revenge game. I think he catches a lot of passes. I'm a little bit worried about his health. He had a hamstring thing. So I check on that a little bit before game time, before setting your lineup. But he's a guy at that value, $5,600, I think is interesting because that's below cost. Devin Singletary, another guy. Starting running back for the New York Giants.
Yeah. Playing a bad defense, too.
Playing a bad defense. $5,700. He's taken over Saquon's role. And then you touched on it, Rashad White, $6,300. I'm going to like this guy all year. PPR, full point PPR. I mean, this guy's going to get you 4 to 5 catches a game. Just that. He's going to be the goal line back. I think the Bucs are going to score a lot of points in this game. Rashad White is a guy that I would want to have on my team, even above cost, $6,300.
Okay. I like that. I don't have a problem with that, Rashad White. I targeted him a lot. I've got him on both my big fantasy teams. I mean, I believe. He's just such a solid number 2 running back.
Yeah. One guy I did want to ask you about, Aaron Jones. Where do you stand on him? He's expensive, $6,500, but he does catch a lot of passes, and this could be a game that gets...
It's a hard game to read. The over-under's low. It's the Darnold thing. I just don't – it's a very hard game to read because it could get wild. I could see that, but then it also could just be really crappy too.
Yep.
So I'm off it. I got to see it. I got to see it on him.
Okay. All right, let's talk about receivers. Top of the market, CeeDee Lamb. Probably due. $8,900.
Can't do it.
Expensive.
Cleve, that over-under's only – it's a very telling thing. On Wake Up Mintzy, we went over all the games and over-unders. That over-under is only 41.5.
I know.
And I just feel like I thought it would be 45 or 46. And I just think something about that game makes me feel like I don't really want to mess with it from a fantasy perspective. Maybe Amari Cooper, though, because he's playing his old team.
It's my play of the week, Amari Cooper, playing his old team. Love this. He's been looking for this game for years, let alone all summer. Amari Cooper is at $6,400, which is obviously above cost, but going against his old team at home is a game that I very much like him.
I like that value with him too. And the thing is too, keep in mind, full point PPR. Amari Cooper's target share was like 40% of that offense last year. And it wasn't just a Flacco; it was a Watson thing too.
Oh, with Watson, he gets I forget the exact numbers, between like 43 and 48% of his passing yards are Amari.
And they're breaking in Jerry Jeudy as the number 2. He's still figuring out his role in that offense. Obviously, he's trying to resurrect his career. They got David Njoku, solid tight end option. Ford at running. They don't have Nick Chubb. I mean, Cooper's the only guy in this whole game I like.
So CeeDee Lamb, $8,900. Tyreek Hill, $8,700. Justin Jefferson, $8,400. And then it drops off pretty significantly. We got Jamar Chase, $7,800.
Let's talk about this Chase situation because they're saying he might not play.
That is an absolute nightmare for I know people that have picked Jamar Chase number 1 overall in their fantasy.
I mean, I got him as my number 1. He was my most expensive receiver in my $500 auction league. The one thing I want to bring up though, and we're taping this comes out Thursday morning, so obviously things change with actives and actives list. T. Higgins at $6,100 is a sick value if Chase is out.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that I've got on my team that I'm going to release. The problem is if it comes out Chase is playing, I got to change it.
Yep.
But Higgins at 6,100, if he's the number one guy with Burrow coming back, I think is a very good value.
Yep. I think that's a great call. I do not like Marvin Harrison Jr. $7,200. We talked about this on the wide receivers preview, but how I'm viewing his I'm not viewing him as a top 10 receiver. He is the 7th most expensive wide receiver, and I get it. It's only a 12-game slate, so it's not the entire league, but I do not see him as a top 10 receiver. He's also going against a Buffalo pass defense.
The thing with him is the hype. I do think he's going to have a good year, but the fact that he's already priced over 7,000 when you have so many proven. I mean, when Amari Cooper's 6,400, getting 40.
Chris Olave 6,600.
Yeah, guys that you know are getting the target share that have proven it in the NFL. I totally see your logic on that. Can I mention one?
Of course.
This is shoot for the moon time. Jalen Waddle 6,300. Like I said, I keep bringing up this Miami thing, but Miami, if there's a team that goes nuclear and explodes, like Waddle's a 75-yard touchdown away on every play.
Yep.
He is questionable, though. I mean, I think he's going to play, but he's always a little banged up. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, him and Tyreek Hill were supposed to return to practice today, I believe.
Okay, well, Waddle at 6,300 I think is a great, like I said, in the DFS vein, it's a boomer bust thing. I mean, he can, he's always capable of a 170 and 2 touchdowns if things go right.
Yeah, let's talk about it because we have 3 receivers and a flex position. So let's talk about a couple of values. As a Saints guy, how are you feeling about Rashid Shaheed, who is always a boomer bust guy? He's $4,400.
Okay, that's funny you mentioned that. I just talked about how I don't like many people in fantasy in this game because I think it's going to be an low-scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
However, Shaheed, 4,400, and I think, Cheah always makes fun of me because I bring this up so much, but I think Shaheed's a dude you start when he's in the Superdome. He's lightning on turf. He can break stuff anytime. You look at this offense, he's the number 2 receiver under Olave. Mm-hmm. The third spot's in flux. Maybe A.T. Perry takes it. Maybe he doesn't. They're going to try to get the ball to Shaheed, and they're going to try to get the ball to Taysom Hill because those guys are playmakers. And because of that, and 4,400, Shaheed's a guy, anybody that has the ability to take a 70-yard touchdown to the house has value in DFS because it's those big plays from cheap prices that win you contests.
Yep.
So I actually have Shaheed in my flex at 4,400 to save money just on that option.
Yeah, a couple of guys I like in that low $4,000 range. Darnell Mooney, $4,200.
I'm big on him this year.
He is the number 2 receiver in Atlanta, and then it just came out 15 minutes ago that Kyle Pitts is nursing a hamstring injury. So Darnell Mooney, I think, is I get that he has a tougher matchup against Pittsburgh, but they're going to let up some yards, and I think he could be the guy to get him. Michael Wilson, Cardinals number 2 receiver.
I think you're hitting on something there because the Harrison thing, there's value with other guys and they're going to score points. 4,300.
He does have Buffalo, which isn't necessarily an easy matchup, but garbage yards.
Buffalo lost a lot. Their defense is hurt. Matt Milano's out. He's the quarterback of the defense.
Safeties.
They lost both Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Their safety position looks super in flux.
Leonard Floyd gone.
Yeah, and maybe Von Miller can bounce back, but he had a horrible year last year and he's 36.
Yep.
I don't know. I think I like that Michael Wilson. That's a good thought because that actually makes sense because it ties into your Harrison being overvalued.
Yeah. One other guy I wanted to point out, and I don't like this matchup because I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game, but Chargers-Raiders. What do you think about Quentin Johnson? He's $4,100. He's supposed to start. Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback. I know he had the plantar fasciitis, but he should be good to go now. Is he a guy that at $4,100, well below cost, could be a playmaker?
So I actually in that game went Ladd McConkey at 4,700 because the thing is with Ladd, it's PPR. Tough because the rookie thing, but it's PPR. And I think when you look at this offense, I mean, they've got Quentin Johnson, DJ Shark, Josh Palmer.
Yep.
But they drafted McConkey early. I think he's a guy that's ready for the NFL and can catch a ton of balls. And so I actually went McConkey 4,700 over Quentin Johnson 4,100 because I just feel like he's, who knows? I mean, he's a rookie. He could have 2 catches. It easily could happen. But he's also a dude that could catch 9 balls for 98 yards, and I wouldn't be shocked either.
Yeah. One guy I do want to point out, and I'll be called a homer for this, but I can live with that. Jalen McMillan.
Ooh.
So against the Commanders, What was his price? I thought I wrote this down. So he's $3,300.
Ooh.
So he is the number 3 receiver. The Bucs are going to run a lot more 3 receiver sets because they are essentially importing a variation of Sean McVay's offense, which is 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, which is 3 receivers. He's going to play a lot against a poor pass defense. He is at $3,300. He's done nothing but impress this offseason. He was one of the big 3 receivers in Washington, at the University of Washington. So Jalen McMillan, I think, is a steal at $3,300 in DFS, and he's going to be on my roster this week.
I like that. Dude. I like that logic, too, because the Commanders, like I said, Commanders and Arizona were the 2 worst defenses in the NFL last year. And if the Commanders do have a strength, I mentioned it earlier, it's Allen and Payne and Bobby Wagner, where the run defense might not be horrible, but the pass defense is. And I like your logic there. I actually was going to bring up, I know he's kind of expensive, but I thought Godwin at 5,700 might be good this game too. I think Evans is too much at 7,100, but Godwin could catch a bunch of balls here in this game, and he was another one. I know 5,700 is high, a little high, but I was looking at him here.
My logic is like you can get Justin Jefferson and Jalen McMillan pretty much if you get both of them, you're pretty much paying average for the position.
No, I like that logic. If you can find the cheap value, then you can go get a superstar. No, I like that logic. I like that deep dive of McMillan. He was a stud at Washington.
Yep. And he is healthy right now, which is huge, which is why he fell in the draft. Tight ends. What are you thinking? Obviously a lower price point here. Top of the market is Trey McBride at $6,100, but then it falls off pretty significantly after that. T. Hawkinson's out, so he's not counted.
I got one receiver I forgot to mention. You brought it up already. Yep. I love Malik Neighbors at $5,900. I just think the thing is, you mentioned why you like Jones. This is his first game. He is the weapon in this offense. They're going to want to feature him. Minnesota has a trash secondary. I think he's going to get a ton of targets. Prop-wise, too, I went through some props. Malik Neighbors to have 100 yards is plus 450. I've seen worse ideas.
I love the Clem theory of numbers mattering. He's number 1. They unretired number 1 so he could have it. They've seen him all camp. They're not going to do that for a guy that's like, I think this guy is going to be awesome. I
do too, and I think early on they're going to really try to feature him. He's their toy, and the early on you're not going to. I feel like the value with him early on in the year will be better than when it's 20 degrees in New York too. And like I said, the Vikings have a bad pass defense, so I've got Neighbors 5,800. I think it's a shoot for the moon thing, but I just think the target share is going to be massive. I mean, they're going to be trying to get him the damn ball. And I've always said this too, watching LSU as much as I do. He reminds me so much of Justin Jefferson. It's so fitting they're playing each other. The way they run in and out of breaks, they are so similar.
All right, tight ends. What do you think? Trey McBride, top of the market. Dalton Kincaid next.
I wrote my blog yesterday. That shout out for Barstool for sharing it. I said Dalton Kincaid will be the number 1 tight end in fantasy football this year. He caught 72 passes his last 11 games last year. This is his second year. Rookie tight ends. We saw Laporta go off last year and Kincaid do well. That's not a normal thing. And when you look at this Buffalo offense with all the new receivers, and Josh Allen's going to chunk it, Kincaid's target share is going to be insane. This over-under is high. I went Kincaid and paid the money.
Okay. I'm an Evan Ingram guy. He's 5,500, so you're getting slightly below cost. But the tight end field is tough. Are there any values you like there? Brock Bowers is questionable. I know that you've had some praise for him. He's at 4,500.
That's a lower over-under too, though.
Yes.
Game, that one's, I don't know. It's always a wild card, but they Taysom Hill 4,300. The problem is, like I said, I just don't think it's going to be that high scoring of a game. But what was fascinating about Hill, the one preseason game the Saints played their starters. You have Clint Kubiak calling plays now. Hill was the other running back other than Kamara. He's getting carries now. They had him at fullback. They had him at running back. He's catching balls. He's going to be a threat around the goal line. Like I said, the only problem is this. I just think this is going to be a lower scoring game. But at 4,300, I just really feel like the new Clint Kubiak thing, they're going to, it was always really annoying the last couple of years. Like, Hill would be featured, some he wouldn't. They're going to be featuring him.
Yeah. Are there any other guys you want to keep an eye on in the tight end market?
I'm looking through it. You mentioned the Kyle Pitts hamstring thing. That's a total avoid against Pittsburgh. So that's one I'm not looking at all. Going down the list, man. Part
of the market's $3,000.
Jonnu Smith, maybe, in Miami. They hadn't had a tight end. That's been kind of a problem in that offense. Maybe he could catch a touchdown just because I think there'll be a lot of points in that game. But yeah, man, it's kind of a man. I'm looking through it right now. I mean, we've got an abyss. Greg Dulcich for Denver is 3,000. He's super cheap. I mean, if you're going like super cheap.
Yep.
And then also, I'm looking for Bobo for Seattle, but I think he's like super cheap too and not bad.
Is he listed as a tight end or receiver? Jake Bobo.
I'm not seeing him on tight. I mean, I thought he was a tight end, but I'm looking. I can't find him. So
the
yeah.
five flat white receiver. One guy I would look at is Cole Kmet. I think he's decent value, 4,100.
You'll get red zone targets.
Yes. So that's
the one thing on tight end strategy with fantasy though, with DFS. I feel like you mentioned Ingram. This is full point PPR.
Yep.
And like a lot of the tight ends in fantasy, you're like so touchdown dependent.
Yep.
And you want guys that are going to really have target share and get catches, and that's why Ingram, full point PPR. I mean, Ingram's the top 3 tight end.
Yeah. We've talked about the positions. Moody, why don't you chime in? Who are some flex guys that you like? So anybody but quarterback, really.
I'll tell you one guy that I do like here is Terry McLaurin. He's going to be the number 1 option for Jaden Daniels. And one thing about McLaurin that I find really interesting, whenever his initial cut in a route is within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, he was ranked number 7 out of all route runners, out of like 132 route runners last season. So Terry McLaurin, if they elect to use him more, in those short routes, I think he could be a real PPR beast for Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels needs that security blanket. There's no doubt about who wide receiver 1 is. I think the second half of that game, Terry McLaurin is going to catch a ton of footballs. I really like him in the flex spot.
Do you like a Daniels-McLaurin stack?
I do like a Daniels and McLaurin stack. I think if you're looking for value there in the middle of the quarterback market, Jaden Daniels has the most upside of any of those guys there in the middle. And then with Terry McLaurin, if those two really do catch fire, I think that's great value between the two of them.
Okay. I like that. Let's talk. Actually, I don't like that because he's playing the Bucs, but I do appreciate the insight there. Defense, special teams. Mintzy, is there anyone you like? Top of the market, we're going Dallas Cowboys, $3,900. Bottom of the market, you're going Arizona Cardinals and Carolina Panthers, $2,400. So this is going to be where you're going to get some savings, so you can get that average budget up to around $5,800.
I usually would say you go cheap because you're trying to play a crappy offense because this is where you save money. This is a spot where I'm not saving money and I'm taking the New Orleans Saints because Bryce Young. Look, I watched the thing with the Saints defense, and we saw this last year. What the Saints do well on defense, when they play bad quarterbacks, they allow like 10 or less points. I mean, they dominate the crappy quarterbacks. Last year, they played 2 games against Carolina. Carolina scored 3 points at either 10 or 13 in that Monday night game. They scored, and Young can turn the ball over. I think the Saints defense is going to show out big in this game. And I know Dave Canales is there in Carolina to try to turn around Bryce Young, but I don't believe bringing Deontay Johnson in saves this offense. Just call me what it is. Yeah. And so I'm spending the money on the Saints here. I think they could really tear up Bryce Young in this game. And if Carolina scored 6 points in this game, I wouldn't even be surprised. And so I think they could cause some turnovers. And so I'm actually spending the money on the Saints. And I know usually I do agree it's about saving money, but it's just that matchup at home against Carolina is so good.
So I did want to bring up for the DST, the defense special teams part. Giving up points is big. So I mentioned this at the top of the show, but a shutout is 10 points for the defense. 1 to 6 points equals 7 fantasy points. 7 to 13 is 4 points. And then you do get into negatives once you get past 28 points allowed. I think there is one game that's going to be very low scoring, and that is the Raiders and the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
We know the Chargers are going to try and run the ball. We know the Raiders are going to try and run the ball. Antonio Pierce as the coach of the Raiders. Defense first. Jim Harbaugh certainly bringing that Big Ten Michigan style back to California for his second stint there. So in the pros, I like both the Chargers at $2,900 and the Raiders at $2,800. If you're looking to save a little bit of money, that would be the way. I'd probably lean the Chargers, even though I
feel like Minshew's more likely to turn the ball over.
Yes. Yeah, so
I like that though. I like that Chargers.
I think that's a spot. But again, this is going to be kind of a place where you can save a little bit of money, but it does come with the risk because if you're allowing 28 or more points, you're getting negative points.
Yeah, I like the Chargers more, like you said, just because I think Mintzy will turn the ball over. And I think what you're going to see out of the offense on the Chargers, they're going to try to run the ball more. We're going to have to see how this Edwards, J.K. Dobbins things go. And the receiving core is super in flux. But I don't think Herbert is a guy that's going to throw 3 or 4 picks in this offense very often. Minshew could fly off the handle, though.
Yeah.
And if that's part of what you're hoping for defense is, stuff to get really bad.
Yeah. Let's all end with one guy we all really like. This is your absolute plant your flag. This is your guy that's going to go off this week, no matter what cost. But what is a guy you are saying definitely he is on, we're only doing 1 entry, but if we had 5 entries, he's going to be on every one of my teams.
Well, I mentioned both. I mean, Moody mentioned one of them, but I'm going Malik Neighbors. I'm going Malik Neighbors at $5,800 week 1. I think they're going to just feature the crap out of him. He's going to get a ton of targets, and I just think if he has a big game week 1, which I think he will, he's going to be like 6,800 next week. So I think you got to, if you have a read like this on someone that's going to break out, you got to hit it week 1 before everybody catches on. So that's who I'm going with.
Moody, how about you?
For me, it's going to be Cortland Sutton. Seattle is going to score a lot of points against this bad Denver defense, and I think Cortland Sutton's going to have a ton of opportunity in the second half of this game to catch footballs from Bo Nix. I believe that in this offense with Bo Nix at the helm and Sean Payton calling plays, we may be looking at a Michael Thomas type scenario here for Cortland Sutton. He is the clear-cut number 1. I'm not saying he's going to catch 140 balls, but they are going to absolutely feed Cortland Sutton. Denver's defense is atrocious. I expect this to be one of the higher scoring games of the week, to be honest with you. And I'm taking Cortland Sutton. He is my, for sure, pick this week in daily fantasy.
$5,400 too, good value.
$5,400. He's in a great spot. I mean, the value's there. And Bo Nix is going to be better than people think. I really and truly think Bo Nix, because he gets the ball out so quick. No quarterback in this rookie class handles blitzes better than Bo Nix. I think with Sean Payton at the helm of this offense, people are going to actually be surprised by how good they play, especially early on in the season. I know everybody's kind of fading Denver because their roster overall is not good. I think they're going to be much scrappier than people expect.
So I mentioned Rachaad White at $6,300. But if we're talking about plant your flag, he's going to be on every one of my teams. It's got to be Jalen McMillan, $3,300. He just represents such a cost savings that you can get Justin Jefferson, basically him at cost. He's a guy on every one of my teams I'd be putting on. I think he's way undervalued. And I'm not saying he's going to go off for, 115 yards and 2 touchdowns and 6 catches. But he's a guy that I could realistically see, 3 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown.
That's how for 3,300. That's how you win.
Yes.
And I mean, I like the logic in that. Like I said, I think the Bucs are going to chunk it in this game. So, and that's a good look. This is part of it. You know a lot about the Bucs. Use that knowledge. That's finding an angle that people aren't seeing, and that's what this is about. And I think you're Cheah. I'll be honest. I know I'm pumping your tires here. One of the things I admire about you find some takes and you stand by them, and that's bold. Fortune favors the bold.
Thank you, Mintzy. I appreciate you. I appreciate Moody. Thank you guys, and also everybody that is watching at home. Thank you very much.
One thing I want to bring up: the Pardon My Take contest.
Yes, well, we're going to enter that.
Okay, we're going to enter that. Do we want to tell Stoolies to join us in that?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're having a Pardon My Take. It's going to be a weekly one?
Yes, so it'll be every week. Where's the link?
We want to play. I think it'll be really fun being under the Barstool handle and getting to play with the Stoolies because obviously DraftKings is so big, but we're really looking forward to interacting with you guys. Come kick our ass and talk some smack.
Yes, let me get the exact name.
Okay.
Of the
Well, and also I want to mention we're all getting in the the $5 that's the massive one.
Yeah, hold on. Wait, it is called the Pardon My Take Award-Winning Listener League. $5 entry, $5,000 in total prizes. So check that out.
Yeah, can't wait. And then I'm going to play that $5 one that's so big. I mean, the beauty of DFS, man, you can put $5 in and win like $300K.
Yes, absolutely.
Somebody's got to do it,
Why not us?
Why not us? What better place than this? What better time than now?
All right, thank you very much for the King of the South, Mintzy. For Moody Behind the Sticks, I'm Stephen Cheah. Thank you for watching Fantasy Football Factory.
Presented by DraftKings.
Good luck this weekend.
The crown is yours.